Before we get started today, just a couple of housekeeping items. On the screen, you will see NAA's antitrust compliance and legal disclaimer, along with our content disclaimer. For our antitrust full compliance statement, please visit our website displayed on the screen and reach out to anyone on the NAA staff as they would be more than happy to help you with any questions you might have. As far as our legal and content disclaimer, as always, this is for educational purposes and no information should be taken as legal counsel. If you have any questions, always reach out to your own business counsel.
Alrighty, so welcome and thank you for joining us for our fourth annual DEI Awareness Week. We are looking forward to bringing you some of our industry's top speakers, diving into all things DE&I. DEI touches so many topics, so please join us as we explore everyday issues that affect everyone and gain the skills to navigate them graciously and intentionally. So we are here Monday, happy Monday, and we are connecting the dots between mental health and DEI, which is so important to understand. With everything going on in the world, it is more important than ever to understand how your mental health is doing and how to build healthy habits. I'm overjoyed to turn it over to our presenters today, and while they will be providing us those tangible ways to take care of ourselves and others. Ladies, take it away.
Thank you so much for the amazing introduction, Tiana. I'm going to go ahead and get that screen shared. Hello, everyone. We are so excited to be kicking off NAA's DEI Week. I'm Dana Duckworth, in case you didn't know, also known as the Big Speaker. And I'm joined by, you all know her, my RPM bestie, Ashia Shepherd. And together, we are Big Joy. So Big Joy is so excited to be kicking off this week for you because these are two topics that are very, very important to us. So just a quick introduction of who I am. I'm Dana. I'm a DEI consultant and a mental health advocate. I have been a part of this wonderful industry of ours for almost 15 years. And some things that you should know about me personally is I am diagnosed with ADHD. I also suffer from some sensory issues. And I've had bouts of anxiety and depression throughout my career and throughout my life. And burnout, I don't think it's missed any of us professionals, specifically during the time of COVID. Ashia?
Well, that was such an amazing introduction. But as Dana said, my name is Aishia Shepherd. I'm also known as the Joyful Leader. A little bit about me, I am a vice president with AMC Delancey Group. I am also a certified mental health first aider. That is real. Mental health first aid is a thing, guys. And while I have not been officially diagnosed, I am confident that I have ADHD and all of the things that go along with that. So I'm so excited to talk to you guys about the importance of DE&I and mental health and how those two things are connected.
Thank you so much, Ashia. So today we're going to cover recognizing how DEI and mental health intersect. Because when we think about DEI, a lot of times mental health is not on the forefront of that thought process. We'll understand the risk when organizations fail to make that connection, and then we'll explore some strategies for fostering an inclusive workplace with mental health in mind. Sound good, everybody? Okay. In true Big Joy fashion, we have to activate you, right? And what way to get it started when we're talking about mental health than to see how you all are doing? And we do that through song. So if you are feeling amazing on this Monday, you are sitting on top of the world like Burna Boy, and you are just in an amazing space, drop a 1 in the chat for me. If you are Snooze by SZA, where you're here, you're logged in, but you're a little bit tired and you're hoping that this webinar keeps you going, then you're going to give us a 2 in the chat. And if you're in meltdown mode, because let's just face it, Mondays are Mondays, y'all, then give us a 3 in the chat. She, let me know what you see in the chat as far as the numbers go. And tell me what number you are.
So I see a bunch of ones, but then I see some people being very transparent with the twos and the threes. I myself, like, I'm on my Sean Lynch mode. I'm just here so I don't get fined. It's a Monday. And sometimes, I showed up, but we've got some 2.5s. So Someone said I'm a 1, a 2, and a 3 at various times throughout the day. So that's real. As you go out the day, you might have came in as a 1, but you can find yourself at a 2 if you didn't get lunch. So I respect that.
Hey, the days are long, so you can start sitting on top of the world and then you'll be sleepy by midday, right? Right about now. And then by the end of the day, you're like, I'm having a complete meltdown. Thank you so much for your transparency in the chat. I hope you all had a little fun with that, but we just always want to make sure that you are doing well as you go along this journey with us as we start to connect the dots. So let's do it. Let's make that connection. Why are we here? A lot of times, well, mostly all the time, when we think about DEI, there are a couple of things that come to the forefront of our mind, right? So we're thinking about race. It's usually race is the top thing, right? And then we start to think about gender, sexual orientation, and ethnicity. But mental health is also a huge part of that. DEI is not simply a race or a sexual orientation. DEI is so many things that encompass us. We are so diverse in so many ways. Look at the chat. You just saw where you all live, different areas. That's diversity, where you've grown up, where you've been raised, what you like to do, what your hobbies are, what your interests are, who your friends are. These are all things that make up our diversity in the way that we show up in the world. So DEI is actually a combination of a lot of things. You see, there's that primary box that includes race and sex, but today we want to focus on something else, mental health. Now, we know physical ability is a huge part of DEI and ableism is real, and that's another topic that should be covered as well. But today we're really going to focus in on mental health when we talk about DEI. I would like to pause on this slide though, because I don't think a lot of people think about the cultural aspects, the power and authority, your views, your being, your doing, your competition or cooperation, and those things that make up the way that we show up in the workplace and how diverse we truly are. How long you've been in an organization, your age, all of these things matter when we're talking about the complexity of diversity inside of the workplace. It isn't just race, it isn't just gender, or inclusion. It includes mental and emotional well-being. So let's get to the facts. I know a lot of people like facts, but I'm a feelings girl. But I think that it's important that we pulse on this because the reality is there are so many of us that are dealing with mental health challenges inside of the workplace right now. Some of us in this moment and some of us today. 44% of surveyed US employees feel burned out at work. So when we think about mental health, of course, ADHD and other mental illnesses are things that we think about, but burnout is also a form of poor mental health that is impacted by things inside of the workplace and our personal lives. 45% versus 16% of workers who are burned out are nearly 3 times more likely to be actively searching for another job. Now, I know, Ashia knows, and y'all know we have so many challenges when it comes to hiring and retaining our employees. By focusing on what triggers and what contributes to burnout, we can start to retain and attract employees and keep them in this industry that we love. 15% of working age adults were estimated to have a mental disorder. That's a lot of y'all. I raised my hand. I'm in that 15%. So there are some days where I feel amazing and I'm 100%. And then there's other days where I may need a little help through my day or I may not be functioning at that 100%. I am your workforce. I am your employees. I am your peers. I am your boss. I'm that person in the workforce. Ashia?
I would say, I think, especially in this industry, we all understand how difficult it is. But understanding how difficult it is and managing it and recognizing it aren't always the same. So, to Dana's point, burnout is real. And for a lot of us, we feel like, oh, I'm going to work until this. And then once I do this, I will get to rest. If you don't take many things from this webinar, I want you to take one thing home with you, which is that rest is not the reward. Rest is the requirement. So your body needs to rest. Your mind needs to rest. And as a leader in your organization, and whether or not you're a leasing agent or a CFO, you are a leader because people are watching your behavior. you need to model what rest looks like and also be aware of what it looks like when your team members need rest and they're on their way to burnout. I have 511 stories about times when I've been burnt out and I continue to work and kind of what that looked like, whether it's I didn't get the job done well, I did the job, but then I went home and I wasn't the best wife, friend, mother, daughter, or I got the job done and I got a team member to get the job done, but they later on left because it was just too much.
Yeah, it can present in so many ways. I know for me, in extreme cases of burnout throughout my career, I would come home and I would be so short. Like my children would know, don't talk to mommy for that first hour that she's at home because I simply was not capable of giving them the level of communication that they deserved because I had poured so much of myself out during my workday that I had that imbalance when I got home. Thankfully, now I recognize those triggers and I know when I'm getting to that capacity. But for a lot of us, this is something that is a constant struggle and a constant balance. So why are we posting on burnout? Because burnout is most likely to exist in organizations and an industry like ours. Let's face it, the role of those in multifamily is not an easy one. We are dealing with residents who sometimes are not the nicest. We are dealing with reports and strategies and missions and visions. And we have so many things that go on in our day to day as business professionals that it can be hard to always have tip top health when it comes to mental health. I like to remind you all that we don't work or live in a vacuum. Our personal life does impact our work and vice versa. Of course, we're all professionals, so we have this innate pressure to succeed. And work life balance can constantly feel like a juggling act, especially in more remote roles. I know for me, sometimes I feel distant as a consultant. That can lead to loneliness. That's also a part of our mental health. Life is tough, and even when we are doing our best, we may not always feel our best. So, just for you all who are not familiar with the exact definition of burnout, it's a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to meet the constant demands. As the stress continues, you begin to lose interest and motivation. And that's when we see people start to look for other roles or not show up as their best capacity. Maybe they're not meeting those deadlines. Maybe they're not as friendly to the residents. Maybe they're really short or their reports start being late. These are things that can manifest when we're not aware that we're in a state of burnout. For
And
me, oh, go ahead, Ashia.
oh, I was gonna say, and I want to say because I see like the room is getting a little full. Burnout is real. I know in my organization, Dana's very familiar with like the people I report to and the people who report to me. And sometimes people will say burnout and they'll like do the air quotes, guys, because for so long, mental health isn't something that we've talked about in the workforce. And just because we didn't talk about it before doesn't mean it wasn't happening and it doesn't mean it's not real. So I want everyone to make sure that like burnout is real. It can happen to you and your team members. And just really acknowledging that it's a state that can happen to any of us. And when it happens, people shouldn't necessarily feel like they're going to be penalized for being in that state. They should feel supported to figure out how to get out of it.
Thank you so much for that insight, Ashia. I also want to say that burnout can be a moment. So if I'm in a moment of burnout, I just got off that call and I need to take a walk. Of course, those things are going to happen. It can be a day. Oh, I really had to get something done today. And by the end of the day, I'm exhausted. It can be a week. We're driving towards this occupancy by the end of the week. Now, when burnout starts to get past a week, starts to get into that 2 week, that 3 week, that 1 month, past the expiration date of whatever project or occupancy you are trying to reach, that's when we really have a problem. Of course, we know we work hard and there are going to be challenges in the workforce. We're not ever saying that anytime you have a bad day at work, you're automatically in a space of burnout. But when those bad days outlast the good days, we need to start to look internally and look at each other to figure out how we can support each other through burnout. So, we're going to talk about missing this connection and what some of the harm that can be caused by not focusing on the internal customers, the employees, and their emotional well being. some of the impacts. And I know this for a fact to be true. When I've been in organizations and I've been in a space of burnout, I have reduced engagement. I do not want to do anything past that 5 o'clock hour. Ashia?
It's very true. When you talk about kind of having inclusivity and mental health, you have to recognize that there's a lot of things that people could be struggling with, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something that they tell you, but you can kind of see it. So a story I always like to share is we used to do weekly meetings. We still do them. I don't know why I say used to. We do weekly meetings, and the way that we always handle the meetings as an organization is that the agenda and like all of the action items would come out literally 5 minutes before the meeting. People would print it out or they pick up the printout at the meeting. I had a team member who was super like engaged outside of that meeting. She always had good ideas, a lot of feedback, just what you would consider kind of like an all-star. And I pulled her to the side once because I felt like in the meeting, I didn't really know what was going on. And she just didn't seem to really enjoy it. And it was because she had dyslexia. So the same things that were happening similar to like burnout and those type of things, they were happening to her because reading the agenda immediately wasn't really helpful. So when we talk about missed innovation opportunities, that team member was going to bring so much innovation and creativity to that meeting. But because we weren't operating with inclusivity and understanding that she needed to get the meeting minutes ahead of time and have that time to review and process, we missed out on that for a while. So we were able to make changes to do a much better job, but there is an impact when people aren't able to communicate or collaborate with you in the same way.
Absolutely. For me, as a person who has ADHD, I hate having meetings about the things that we need to meet about. I am an executor. If you give me a task, it's going to get done. But if I have to continue to sit in meetings to talk about the task or what needs to be done, it starts to deflate my energy and really my engagement in that specific task. This is something that I know and I have to actively work against. But how many of your employees are simply burnt out because you keep meeting with them about the thing that you need to meet with them for the meeting that needs to be met?
So
So
as
stigma, go
the
ahead.
chat is going off, I just had to tell you, so many people are like, exactly, but I'm talking to you or the meeting about a meeting. Someone said they're opening their laptop on vacation. So people feel you on the meeting and the meeting and the meeting.
Absolutely. And then there's the stigma and discrimination. So I'm 37 years old, and now it's like the key to transparency is inclusion for me. That's literally my tagline. I will tell you all of my business because I've seen how it's transformed spaces. But that was not always the case for me. I used to be very introverted and not share anything with anyone ever. And I would carry all of these burdens. One, because I didn't think people would understand how my brain works. If I'm like, hey, I do not understand those verbal directions. Can you show me? I didn't always want to say that. I'd be worried that people would look at me differently or think that I couldn't do the job. And honestly, my ADHD is my superpower. I can do the job really well. I just do it different from other people. There's also the missed innovation and opportunities. When you are not an inclusive environment for those who deal with different mental health challenges, like you are missing out on some of the magic, right? For Ashia and Ashia, who's not diagnosed, but I have diagnosed her because we share a lot of the same tendencies. And I say that seriously. Like, of course, you should get diagnosed. But just seeing that we are so creative and innovative in our space when we are just letting our minds not be in the confines of boxes or meetings or traditional senses of studying, training, working, and being, it really allows us to be innovative. And then, of course, we want to talk about that bottom line. If you're not supporting your employees when they have these challenges, when they need the time off, when they're asking you to be flexible, when they're saying, hey, if I could just do this 30 minutes later, I'd be able to work out and be so much better for the organization, there is some legal and ethical risk. Now, I'm not saying do everything different for everyone all of the time. What I'm saying is ask the question, what could we be doing better and what can we do for you? So now we're going to start to identify the connections in your organization and help you start to spot that overlap of DEI and mental health. Shia, I'll let you go on with this one because I know you have some story time about absenteeism.
So when we're talking about the overlap between, I always feel like doing this sets me up so well. When we're talking about the overlap here, do you monitor absenteeism? So I understand that in our role, you obviously need people to come. You need, butts and seats. But not only should you be checking to see, hey, how often does this person call out or how often is this person present, but when are they calling out? So if you guys have a really difficult time, it's turn season, everyone's working so hard, and then immediately after that, you have a lot of call outs, you have a lot of latenesses, that's something that you should be tracking for a pattern. Maybe your team is burnt out, maybe they are overwhelmed. And when you aren't really checking into those things, if there's an uptick on sick leave, it could be something where if you are monitoring it and you say, hey, every time we have this many turns in a week or this many move-ins, we get two more people who call out, or these two people call out, you can say, maybe that's too many move-ins for this week, or maybe we need additional resources. But that's something that in your role, you can monitor and check in on. Also, when you talk about like absenteeism, you want to say to yourself, am I being realistic? Like a lot of companies want to monitor absenteeism for productivity. But if someone takes a day and it's a mental health day, in the same way that if someone took a sick day because they were physically ill, if you're a manager and you check in on them and say, hey, I just want to see how you're doing today, you can provide those same resources and that same support. For us, it's very easy to support people when they say something that we feel like is a tangible thing. Like, I have a cold. You might send them soup. You might say, oh, do you have cough drops? Da, 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 da. But when someone says, I'm just having a down day or I'm having anxiety, that's not always something that we can easily figure out how to support them. But we have an obligation to look into how to do that better.
Yes, and that starts with, again, asking the question, how are you? How are you really? And what can I do to support you? There's also a way to figure out what's happening in your organization simply by seeing who's the most stressed and disengaged. So we have all of these different pockets, operations, suppliers, that we have all of these different roles inside of our organization. And there may be extreme stress going on the maintenance side, like Ashia said, during that turn season. And then there may be another time where it's your leasing side that is under extreme duress because they're trying to drive occupancy, or there's some renovations coming up, or there's something going on at the property that they're really focused on. Just taking the time to evaluate your teams, evaluate the different pockets of your organization will help you to more easily identify when those groups are frequently stressed or disengaged. When they stop coming in to say good morning and grab their coffee from the clubhouse, perhaps your maintenance needs a little bit of a break. When they stop smiling when they answer the phones and they're out of the door at 4:59, perhaps those who work internally need that time. And then I also want you all to monitor the rate of turnover for underrepresented groups. We're talking about diversity here. So, is there a certain group of people that are in our organization that just continue to leave? Is it because we haven't set up this environment to be inclusive for them? Perhaps we talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion when they first applied and first joined the organization, but we haven't really fulfilled that mission or that vision and showed them that this is a space where we value those things. Taking a pulse on who's leaving, when, and why is going to help you continue to drive your organization innovatively and also increase that engagement, and people will want to stay with you. And then what does your engagement survey look like? I know we ask a lot of questions about how people feel about leadership when we're doing those things, how they feel about training, but does your engagement survey include questions about inclusion and well-being? We love a survey, y'all. So let's survey our folks to see how they're really doing. Ashia, I know you like to say it's okay not to be okay. So go ahead and say it.
Guys, because it is okay not to be okay. In professional spaces, we often feel like if you say you're not okay, you're not doing well, that in some way that means that you're less than competent, or that'll prevent you from getting a promotion or a new project or whatever it could be. And it's so important to be able to say, I'm not okay. Can I still do my job? Probably. Am I still the best property manager on the Eastern Seaboard? Yes. But guys, it is okay to have a down day. So that's like my mantra. The same way Dana says the key to inclusion is transparency. It's okay not to be okay, guys. It's Monday. You could be struggling.
Yes, you can struggle on a Monday. So, how do we combat that? Well, you are responsible for your own boundaries, right? And setting those. You set the tone for how you should be treated in the organization and how you show up. Organize your time. Some of us are a lot better at this than others. I won't say Ashia, but it is so important that you organize your time and prioritize what's really important. Also, knowing when there's too much on your calendar. Ashia is teaching CAPS right now, but
It's
she's
the
also doing
cam.
okay.
It's the cam.
She's teaching the new CAM right now, but she's also showing up here in this webinar because this is something that she's very passionate about. But there are times where she may not be in a great space to have all of those things going on at one time. So I'm happy that you're healthy and mentally well and here to support us in this DEI week, Ashia. Thank you for all you do.
Oh, that was so kind. I will say that the key about organizing your time, it is so important because I'm so happy to be on this webinar and with you guys. Would I have definitively said yes if my calendar was correct? I can't say. But it is important to have an understanding of your time, your commitments. And also, when you talk about learning when to say no, a thing that I think is so key is that what's for you is for you. So in our industry, it's very easy to feel like if you don't have this lateral movement in your career, you're going to miss out. And for some of us, you might have to say no to an opportunity because you have a commitment at home or because you have other things that you're engaged in and interested in. And if you have to say no to something, if it's for you, this is like not to be all, feng shui, but it will come back around, guys, and it will be better and it'll be the opportunity that you were supposed to have.
Yes. And take breaks and make space. What do you love? I often talk about this idea of a popsicle moment that I learned from someone in a previous organization, where when you have a popsicle, all you have time to on is that popsicle in that moment. And when it melts or you've eaten it all, you can get back to life. So figure out what your popsicle moments are. For me, sometimes mine is simply walking out of my front door in the middle of the day and letting the sun hit my face, and then I can come back in and get right to it. It might be cuddling my dog, or to be honest with y'all, sometimes it's a nap. But whatever it is that I need to get back in the game, that's exactly what I do to make sure I stay healthy. And then make your mental health a priority. This is important. The same way your physical health, if something was wrong with you physically, you would take care of that. You have to do the same for your mental health.
In line with that, I also want to say for people who are in on-site roles, residents are amazing, but sometimes residents act like tenants. And when that happens and you have gotten a phone call or email, take a walk. It's so simple, but a lot of times in our industry, we're so used to kind of receiving that feedback or that type of energy from our residents. And then we'll just stay stagnant. So get up, move your body, make sure that you're checking in with yourself. And to Dana's point, check in with your team members. If someone just had a difficult interaction, maybe pull them to the side, see if they need to take a walk, get a water, listen to a song. But all those things are like really small intentional habits you can be doing.
Yes, you can also start implementing support systems. For myself and Ashia, we rely a lot on each other. Sometimes there's nothing like calling your workplace bestie to say, my day is killing me. I need help. I am drowning over here. I don't know what's happening. And to just have that space to vocalize what it is your challenges are, sometimes for me, that's the relief that I need. Also, recognizing your stressors, knowing when you're about to hit your limit. I know that I recognize my stressors really easily because I've been working on this for a long time, to be honest, you all. If I don't go to the gym, I know that my day may not go as planned because my mind is not as clear as it could be. So I try to mitigate the contributing factors by making sure that I'm also physically healthy because it supports my mental health. This can really foster a culture of well-being and can prevent the mental health challenges. So whatever that is for you, whatever that support system looks like, whatever those resources are, make sure that they're always available to you so that you can be your best self at work. Communication is key. Now, Ashia and I are talkers, so for us, it works to communicate and talk through our problems. But that's not the case for everyone. Some people just want to go yell in a quiet room. If you have a soundproof station in your office, or you don't. I recommend getting one because sometimes you just want to scream it out. And other times people will draw and turn into themselves. But having some effective communication strategies within your organization is going to be vital to ensure everybody's mental well being. What are you doing or what are you saying to make it acceptable for people to tell you when they're not okay? Are you reminding them, hey, y'all, happy Monday. It's okay not to be okay. If I asked you how your weekend was and it wasn't well, you don't have to say, I'm doing good. How are you? How are you really? And then open up dialogue, lead by example. Tell some of your struggles. It's okay to say, hey, that was a really tough resident to deal with there. I don't really feel good about that interaction. I'm going to take a pause. By showing other people that you're not always okay, you open up space for them to be okay. Ashia?
Yeah, I think in line with Dana's saying, we want to also discuss that's not always easy. If you are someone who's changing the culture at your organization, and so mental well being isn't something that you communicate about openly, it's hard to be the first person. But it's so important because once you start discussing these things, everyone will feel like they can do it. I was literally on the phone with Dana once, and an executive at my company was leaving on a Friday, and he said, and I quote, I'm leaving because I feel like my mental health is being affected. And I don't know if he was saying it with the severity that some people might be saying, but he was definitely saying, like, I need to leave this space and this place so I can come back better. And when you say that to team members, it's allowing them to say to you the next day, to Dana's point, hey, this was how my weekend went. I can work. Like, I can still be a productive member of this team, but I might not be bubbly. I might not be coming in to get coffee. I might not be caught up on Love is Blind because I had a rough weekend. That space is so important because we are people and we're always peopling. And in this industry, we operate businesses, but we also deal so much in the work of people that it can be draining. And you have to be able to say that and know that you're not going to be penalized. And if anything, your team will be more successful because you can create that supportive culture.
All right, so let's foster that mentally positive workplace. What are some practices? Inclusive policies include mental health days as part of PTO. There's something about calling a thing that makes things really good. Like when you put a label on something and say, hey, take a mental health day, take a personal day, go and take care of yourself. People are more inclined to do that thing as opposed to they just don't feel mentally healthy that day and they decide, hey, maybe I could call in, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I need to call in sick, maybe I need to make an excuse. Instead of just saying, I need a mental health day, let's remove some of those barriers for our folks.
And sorry, and I was going to say, in removing the stigma, as organizations, people's days are their days. So, do you really want someone who has to start fake coughing on Tuesday because they don't feel like they're going to be okay to come in on Wednesday? It's really something where mental health is the same as physical health, to Dana's point. So, you want your team members to feel like their days are their days. And if they need them, you support them in taking them.
Yes. And then mental health education. Of course, this is a great start, but you need to go much further. Train yourselves and your employees to recognize some of those triggering factors, some of those contributors to burnout in the workplace, or just to recognize when the coworker who's always so vivacious and lively has maybe changed a bit and check in with that person to ask them how they're doing. Community building is also so important. So many things can be done better in our organizations if we just create safe spaces for discussion, right? Happy, healthy conversation about things that are impacting us in our workplace. Just making space and then taking up space to talk about topics like mental health because we all have mental health. Sometimes it's really good, and other days it's challenged. And then feedback loops, regular post checks to see how everybody is doing. Maybe it's a scale. Are you a 1 or a 10 today? Maybe you're a 2. What else can we be doing for you? And innovation and well being are linked. When people feel safe, they bring their best ideas forward. Ashia, over to you to talk about some things to avoid and some tips for managers.
So, when we talk about things to avoid, we want to discuss performative efforts. So, check ins, we've talked about that throughout this whole webinar. When you check in with someone, you want to be genuine. So, if you check in with somebody on Monday and they say, I'm not doing well, you might say, oh, okay, well, Thanks for sharing that with me. Let me know what I can do. If on Tuesday they come to you and say, hey, I'm still not feeling well, and if possible, can I work on administrative tasks today? Or if possible, can I not be, going into people's homes if they're on the service team? Is there any turns I could do or renovations? It doesn't necessarily mean, yes, you're always going to have to say you can do that, but you want to say that you're trying. So you don't want to be performative in your efforts. You ask people to come to you with concerns. You have to be genuine and do what you can to make sure that you're receiving them and trying to change things that are affecting them. Overlooking marginalized groups. So again, like Dana said, DE&I is not just race, it's not just gender, it's not nationality only. It's literally all of the groups in your organization that are underrepresented in some way. So if someone is first, only or different, if you're in a conference room and there's only one person that's under 40, you want to support them and make sure that their voices are being heard. If there's only one woman, if there's one person who happens to have shared that they're dealing with anxiety. If I have a team member and they've shared that they're dealing with anxiety, most likely they're not the only one. But if they're the only one who shared that, I'm probably not going to send them those emails to say, stop by when you get a chance. I am overlooking them as someone who has told me that that can be a trigger for them and that's something that might trigger their anxiety. Also, things to avoid, HR and legal challenges. Just gonna pause on this one, let it breathe. We all feel like we know what these are. So when we think about HR and legal challenges, I understand how equal opportunity employment works. And I also understand that we are in the realm of multifamily. So we're always thinking about fair housing and treating everyone equally. You want to treat everyone equally in the sense that everyone has resources and support. But what Dana needs to do well in her role isn't necessarily what I need to do well in my role. So that's why it is so important to have inclusive environments. What it means to be a fair manager is that everyone has support. It doesn't mean that everyone gets the same support. You can know your personnel and know what you need to do to help them. And then tips for managers. Check in, not check up. So when you check in with someone, you want to pull them to the side. You want to maybe set aside time to really say, hey, I'm listening to you. I want to hear you. I'm not just stopping by your office and going, how's your weekend? That is important, but checking in is something that should come across as genuine. Model vulnerability. So in line with what Dana's been saying about the different things that she struggled with, ADHD being her superpower, if you're a manager and you're not modeling to the best of your ability, like work-life balance, or the fact that, hey, sometimes it is 4 o'clock and I'm done. I'm done because it's 4 o'clock and my job is hard. Your team members are going to feel like they're not allowed to have those behaviors. And no one is a machine. We cannot just judge our team members on their productivity. We have to judge them in who they are at all times. So for some people, productivity might be, I answered 1,000 emails today, but that means tomorrow I can't people. So I'm going to get you those reports you need. I let my team members know that when I come in, I've had a long weekend. I will say, hey guys, I'm here if you need me. But to be honest, I'm probably not in the best situation to have certain conversations. You want to model that so your team feels like they can do it. And then boundaries on time off. This is Dana's favorite topic because she likes to talk about her naps. I don't know if you want to jump in, but I will say, regardless of your role in your company, time off is real. We are in an industry that a lot of people don't recognize is very emergent, like fire, flood, and blood. That happens all the time in this industry. Like I'm teaching the CAM, as Dana said, and there were people here, attendees, participants, who couldn't not answer their emails. And while I understand the urgency that is just built into what we do, you have to put boundaries in place so that your team members can know, hey, my boss has boundaries, so I can have boundaries, or I'm going to have boundaries. And then maybe my boss will say, you know what? She's doing it right. I can have them too. So maybe that's, I don't answer emails after 7 p.m. It seems so simple. And I know somebody's on here like, yeah, it's easy to say. It's easy to say, but it's also easy to do. If you have team members and you say to them, hey guys, if you email me after 7, that's fine as long as it's not urgent. they'll say, oh, okay, well, I can send this email. She's not going to get back to me. And what that also builds is like a sense of respect so that they know if it is urgent and they call you, you will answer. But you're not going to come in to 100 emails because everyone understands those boundaries.
Thank you so much, Ashia. All right, so what can we be doing? Here is your call to action, folks. When you get off of this call, if you have time and space in your place that you're in right now, I want to encourage you to organize your calendar, audit it, figure out what needs to go and chuck it, okay? If that standing meeting has provided no value for the last 6 times it's been a standing meeting, get rid of it and figure out what you can best use that time for. Schedule time for your personal well-being, including exercise, meal breaks, meditation, and since we're a multifamily, we gotta say bathroom because I know a lot of y'all are not getting up to go because you think what you're doing is so very important, but you gotta take care of yourself and make sure you include breaks, even for the bathroom, as silly as it may sound. Balance, finding designated working hours and calm expectations and flexibility in that. Maybe your working hours have to be in office from 8:30 to 5:30, but what's the expectation about your response time for emails during that time? What is the expectation for communications? Is everything coming through text message, phone call? Like, what is the level of extreme that we have? Is email less important than phone call? Is text the most important thing that we need to be checking? So figuring out our communication norms will help us operate better. And then requesting time off when you need it, whether it's mental health or a mental health day or not. If you gotta go, you gotta go, folks. Like, seriously, if you have to take care of your mind, it is okay to do that. Whether it is coded as sick time, PTO, or you had to leave early, what's most important is that you take care of your mental health. Talk about it inside of your organizations. Don't leave this webinar and not bring it up. Let's talk about mental health and keep that conversation going. Build the community that you need to be okay. And when somebody is struggling with something, because we know our days are not always so peachy, demonstrate some empathy and then share some resources with them. Provide accommodations when you can. And like we're doing here on this week, continue to spread awareness about DEI and mental health. Literally everyone inside your organization has a role in fostering a mentally healthy and friendly space. Take care of yourselves and each other, folks. And I'd like to leave you with a quote here. The future of work requires the prioritization of DEI and mental health. So make sure these things are in your future. And with that, we've been Big Joy. We're here to answer any questions that you may have. Go ahead. I heard somebody come off mute.
So in the chat, wait, somebody come off mute?
No?
Okay,
Okay.
so in the chat, April said this webinar cannot have been at a better time. She's thankful. A lot of people are saying, awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the inspiring words. Yeah, I mean, again, guys, it's a Monday, so I'm so happy that we were able to do this. Someone said, how would you recommend starting to integrate mental health into your organization?
I think the first thing is to talk about it. So if I were you and I just left this webinar, I'd say, hey, I just had a really great webinar about mental health and its importance in our organization. How can we start to focus on implementing some of these things? And it may be as simple as just implementing a certain time of day that is a break time for everyone. I'm not talking about lunch break. Maybe there's a 10-minute chair stretch break or a 10-minute go outside and get some sun break. And just putting that on everybody's calendar, it gives them space to think about taking care of themselves. Really easy activation there.
Yeah, Dina says she appreciates this. Are there any resources, websites, blogs to start learning?
Yeah, I recommend the Calm app is a great one for meditation. And of course, they have a lot of blogs in there. SHRM, that is the HR, the World HR Organization. So I definitely recommend visiting that. You have access to mental health first aiders since we are in the National Apartment Association. There's so many people that are available to you to support you in that. Ashia and I run a workshop on mental health to help organizations There's so many resources and so many people. John Sons is an amazing resource as he runs that mental health task force for NAA. We are talking about it and we are making it a thing, y'all. So don't leave here today and not talk about it, because when I see you, I'm gonna say, how you doing? Really?
So we got two questions that I think are pretty good. So one, well, they're all good questions, guys. But what do you say to employers who may hold that workplace, who may hold the thought that workplace is not the place for caregiving and that employees need to leave their personal lives at the door? So I'm going to start off on this one. It's not real, guys. And I'm not saying this to come across harsh about anyone's organization, but ultimately you employ people, not robots. And so while there is a sense of like compartmentalization that everyone's capable of, saying for people to leave their personal lives at the door is just not really a reasonable thing. So everywhere I go, I'm a mother. Everywhere I go, I'm a wife. And for a lot of us, those things that you are outside of work make you better in your role. So if you can appreciate me as a team member because being a mom has taught me how to multitask and de-escalate, you also have to understand that if I have something going on at home with my children or my husband, that is something that contributes to who I am as well. So I would say for organizations that feel that way, it's really just not a thing. And there's a lot of science and data that Dana has all the numbers for that shows you that when people are able to be themselves in the workplaces, they are actually more productive. So it is literally a bottom line improver when people can show up and be themselves.
Absolutely. And watch that turnover rate. If you feel like don't bring your feelings and your fuzzies to the workplace, okay, let's see how burnout goes in the organization and also see what that turnover and retention rate is, because we are all people. I feel whether I'm clocked in or not clocked in. These are my feelings and these are my thoughts. For those in upper level positions, how do you suggest maintaining flexibility to mental health days, et cetera, while also maintaining a corporate policy and fairness amongst team? I think this isn't about equality here, right? So everybody has the same amount of days. This is about equity. So what are the conversations that we're having with our team to understand what it is that they need? It could still be well within that policy, right? But people just feel a weight when they have to put sick day on their calendar. Perhaps you're charged with removing that weight by just saying, hey, what's going on with you? What is it that you need? Oh, okay, well, on this day, I really need to go see my therapist. It's not an actual sick day, but I really need the time. Just having those conversations and opening up that dialogue is going to be so important. Shannon, I see you asked for some resources and some links. If you want to connect with me, my email is speakupdana@gmail.com. That way I can get you some stuff personally. Kara House, what do you say to employers who may hold that workplace is not the place for caregiving and the employees need, okay, we covered that one there. Great questions, great questions. What are some common barriers to mental health to support for employees from diverse backgrounds, and how can you actively be proactive in addressing those? For myself as a Black woman, a lot of times I feel like I have to be the absolute best at everything, and I cannot show any of my mistakes or my downfalls. And it can cripple you in the workplace when you feel like you can't make a mistake. So I feel like I can't make a mistake because I might be the first, the only. So I'm carrying the weight of being the first and the only, right? So that leads me to not wanting to ask any questions because I don't want them to think I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't want them to think I'm not as smart as I am, or I can't get the job done. So really just recognizing what some of the barriers are for those who are marginalized in your organization. It's going to help you see them better and remove those barriers before they get to that. We were getting a lot of questions here.
I also saw, I think I missed the question, so you might want to go up, but I saw, as a leader, how do you draw an appropriate line between support and enabling poor behavior and performance? So I will say, as a manager and like a leader in my organization, first, you want to do everything in context. So if I have a team member and they were doing really, really well, and they've always been a high achiever, and I see like a decline or decrease, I want to talk to them about it because this is not their normal behavior. So if you have someone who's never been good and they continue to be bad, that's not the same conversation that we're talking about when we discuss burnout, but we're talking about someone who is a high achiever, a high performer, and then you start to see the decrease because you want to say, hey, what's going on with this? And also understanding that productivity is going to be different every day. So, to Dana's point, you could be someone who's amazing and have a bad day. You can be a leasing professional who's always renting and have a bad week. But when those things continue, you want to say, hey, what's going on? And sometimes when you have those conversations, you'll be surprised at how quickly people appreciate that you're coming to them to say, I've noticed this, as opposed to, let's fix this. Because sometimes it's not something that you can fix for them, but you can support them through those challenges. And then not only will you have a team member who returns to their status as a high performer, but you'll have someone who feels more connected to the organization.
And then last question I see in our Q&A box is, what recommendations do you make for mental health breaks and checks for people who are 100% remote and working alone? I am 100% an employee, an employer and an employee of one. I'm the only person in this org, right? So I definitely feel you on that and how remote work can sometimes be isolating. So what have I done? I've created a community around me of people who are working, just not at the same organization. So perhaps you have a midday Zoom or you eat lunch on Zoom with someone who you determine as a colleague or a friend, whether they're in your organization or not. Perhaps, like I said, you go outside and you get some of that fresh air. There are different ways to communicate with people, LinkedIn groups, Slack groups, so many different groups for professionals that you can be a part of. And then if you get really lonely, just email me, because 9 times out of 10, I'm lonely too.
I would also say, as managers and leaders, when you have remote workers, it's so important to make sure they don't feel like they're missing out. So, like, if you're having team lunches and happy hours, maybe they can't come, but if you want to send them a gift card, or even if you want to just make sure, like, if there is a game that you guys played, you say, hey, this is the game. Maybe you want to play it too. Just trying to be as inclusive, because to Dana's point, it can be lonely when you're working from home, and you don't want people to feel isolated.
Absolutely. Well, I think that will do it. Thank you all so much for joining us for this webinar. As we kick off NAA's DEI week, I can't wait to see all of the other education that is going to be taking place this week. Tiana, I wanted to toss it back to you, just in case you had any last words or any other instructions for those who joined us.
Oh, last thing. I'm putting our names in the chat. If you guys want to connect on LinkedIn because we didn't get a chance to answer your question, we are available. Dana more than me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so, so much, you guys. What a wonderful hour of conversation and tangible tools and all the things that you can walk away with and start making a direct impact right away. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back tomorrow with another day and more information around DEI. If you need to still get registered, just check out the NAA website and we can get you registered. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And once again, thank you so much, guys. It has been a true pleasure. Have a wonderful Monday. Bye,
Take
guys.
care of yourselves and each other. Bye.